The purpose of this tutorial is to show you some formulas and functions that you can use in Microsoft Excel. Let's start with the basics and discuss the name of a cell. Each cell has a name that can be found by looking at the top of a column and the row that the cell falls into. In the case of the cell that I'm clicking on currently, the name of this cell is A2, which you can see here at the top. The cell next to it is B2, and so on and so forth. This is important to know when you're creating a formula involving cells. To begin, every formula must include an equal sign at the beginning. This lets Excel know that you are beginning a specific formula, and the specific parameters of that formula will follow this equal sign. Alright, let's start with the first formula that I'd like to show you today. Since this is the location where I'd like the result of the formula to show up, I'm going to click in this cell and type the equal sign. And now I'd like to start by showing you the count formula. The count formula is a way to count the number of values within a set range of cells that involve numbers. So in the case of this column here, I would like to know how many students are in this column. So what I could do is, after typing the equal sign, I could begin by typing the name of the formula that I'm using, which is the count formula. As I begin to type this formula name, you'll notice that a drop-down list of options show up here for the different formula types that you could pick from. Once I've typed count, now I need to specify the range of cells that I am counting. I'll put in a parenthesis to begin specifying the values that I'd like to count. And now I'll go to the top of this column, specifying that I'd like it to begin counting at the cell B2 and drag down till I reach B20. You can see here in my formula that I'm now counting between cells B2 and B20. To finish my formula, I'll end with a parenthesis and press enter. And it is telling me that I've been able to count that there are 19 students here. I was able to count the values in this column because they were all numbers. In some cases, you may have to count values that are letters. I'll do that with column C now to show you. If you need to count values that are letters instead, you're going to use the count A formula. Go ahead and begin with your equal sign once again, followed by the name of the formula, which is count A, and begin your parentheses to specify the range that you are counting. So in this case, I would like to count C2 and drag down to count to C20. Now I will end my parenthesis and press enter. And it was able to count the letter values in these cells and tell me that I have 19 students. Now I'm going to clear the contents of these cells and show you another count formula that you can use. Let's say, for example, you wanted to know how many students in your class had the last name that began with the letter R. You could use a COUNTIF formula saying that the cells you're looking for contain a specific criteria. So to begin, you'll press the equal sign and give the name of the formula that you're using, COUNTIF. Now, I'll begin my parenthesis and specify the range that I'd like it to look at. So I'll drag from C2 down to C20. Now, since I need to set the specific criteria, my formula will not stop here. You can see that there's a little hint that is displayed below this formula letting you know what you need to do next. So in this case, I'll put a comma, and now I need to specify the criteria that I would like it to pull. So in this case, I'd like to know how many students in my class have last names that begin with the letter R. Anytime that you want Excel to pull a specific piece of information, it has to go in quotation marks. Now I put in the letter R, specifying that that's the letter I wanted to look for, and end with another quotation mark, followed by my parenthesis to end the formula. when I press enter, it displays the number 2, telling me that I have 2 students in my class with last names that begin with the letter R. The next formulas that I'd like to show you have to do with arithmetic operators. So if you're adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing certain values. Let's move over here to the cell K2. If I would like to add these 4 values in G2, H2, I2, and J2 to figure out the total number of points, I can use an arithmetic operator. The way I do this is I begin my formula, like all formulas, with an equal sign. And now I can put in the first value that I'd like to add. In this case, G2 is the cell that I'm looking for. Now I'm going to put in a plus sign, letting Excel know that I'll be adding another cell to this formula. Now I'll click on H2, followed by a plus sign, I2, followed by a plus sign, and click on J2 and end my parenthesis. Now, as you can see, Excel has added all 4 of these columns, letting me know that the first student in my class has received 28 total points. Just as I mentioned in my last tutorial, you can autofill columns as well. Now in this case, if I want the same formula to be applied to all the other students in the class, I don't have to retype this formula in every time. I can simply click on the box that contains one of these formulas, find the little black box in the lower right corner, and drag this formula all the way down till the end. And now this formula has applied to the rest of the students in my class, calculating the total number of points that they earned. Now I'm going to clear this momentarily and instead show you some of the other arithmetic operators that you can use. Let's say instead I wanted to subtract 2 values. So I'll begin with my equal sign and click on the first cell that I'd like in this operation. And now I'm going to use the minus sign and subtract the second value and press enter. I once again could drag this formula down the column, and now it has subtracted 2 cells to give a remaining result here. I'll clear my contents again. And now I can show you how you could divide 2 values if you'd be interested in doing so. So you could use the equal sign, click on the first cell, use the slash sign as a division symbol, followed by the next value, and press enter. Now it will divide those 2 values for you. And you can drag this down the column. Finally, if you want to multiply, you will put in the equal sign, click on the first cell, use the asterisk, click on the second cell, and press enter. And now it will multiply those 2 values, and you could drag this formula down the rest of the column. The next thing that I'd like to show you is the sum formula. The way I showed you that you could add all of the cells in this column before required you to put in the equal sign, click on one cell, add a plus sign, and click on the second cell. But you could also just as easily use the sum formula. The sum formula begins with an equal sign followed by the word sum, parentheses, and now you'll specify the range that you would like it to add. So I would like it to add from G2 to J2. I'll end my formula with a parenthesis and press enter. Now I can drag this formula all the way down my column. You may notice that sometimes there will be a little green triangle in the corner of a cell that has a formula. This may mean it doesn't like the format that it's in, or there could be an error with the formula. If you click on this little alert symbol that shows up, you could have help on this error if you'd like to. It will provide you with a little detailed description of what you could do to solve the issue, or you can ignore the error altogether and those little green triangles will disappear. Alright, so now moving along down here, if you wanted to figure out what the average score was in a column in your class, you could use the average formula. which requires you to use the equal sign, type in average, and now specify the range that you would like it to find the average of. Close with the parenthesis and press enter. And now this tells me that on tested skill number 1, the average score was a 7. I could again drag this formula, instead of going down the column, I could drag this formula across, and now it would apply this average formula to all 4 of these tested skills. Similarly, you could find the mode of a column by putting in the equal sign followed by the word mode and specifying the range that you would like it to find the mode of. Close your parenthesis and press enter. And I could drag this value across the rest of the columns to find the mode. Now you may want to calculate an overall percentage correct on your assessment here, and what you could do is use the division formula in order to do this. So if this assessment was out of 40 points total, what I could do is calculate the overall percentage by typing in an equal sign, specifying that I'd like it to start with K2, which is the number of points the student earned, divided by the total number of points that were on the assessment, and press enter. Now I could drag this formula all the way down the column. Unfortunately, Excel doesn't automatically put this into a percentage for you, but you can change the format very easily. Select all of the values that you would like to be in the percentage format, right-click, and go to Format Cells. Now you'll see that it right now is in the general category. Instead, select percentage, and if you want decimal points to be after this percentage, you can. Otherwise, you can leave it as 0 decimal places and press OK. And now you can see the percentage of students in the class and what they earn, or the percentage that the students earned in the class. The next formula that I'd like to show you is the if formula, which you're going to be using if you're looking for values that are true or values that are false. So for example, I could start and decide if the student passes or fails this assessment based on the overall percentage that they had in the L column. So to do an if formula, I'll begin with the equal sign followed by the word if. So I'm saying if L2, and in this case I'd like to know if it's less than 80%, then, so I'll put in a comma specifying that I'm moving on in the formula. Oh, I'm sorry, I need to go back. If it's greater than 80%, then I'll put in parentheses, because this is an exact value that I'd like it to show up as, pass. But if they do not attain 80% or greater, I'll put a comma, parenthesis, fail. Now I'll end my formula with a parenthesis and press enter. In the case of this student, because their score was lower or less than 80%, they failed. If I drag this if formula down the column, however, you'll see that students with scores that were higher than 80% passed this assessment. So that is how you would use the if formula in Excel. The next thing you may be interested in doing is using the concatenate formula, which would be if you would like to combine two sets of cells into one single cell. And the way you could do that is begin by creating a separate column next to the two cells that you'd like to have combined. So now I'm going to press Insert, and I'll begin with my concatenate formula. So what I can do is type in the equal sign and begin by typing in the name of this formula. Now, I'd like it to start with the value in D2. in between D2 and C2, I'd like there to be a comma. So I'll put in parentheses that I'd like a comma to appear in between those two cells, followed by another comma saying that I'd like it to next pull in C2, because I would like this to say Amy, comma, A. I'll close my parenthesis and press enter. And now I have Amy A, and I can pull this formula down to apply to the rest of the students in my class. And now I have combined what was once two separate cells of information into one cell instead. You could also use the text to columns option if you would like to take what was once two separate or one combined cell of information and separate it into two. So what I'll do to begin is get rid of the formula, and I want to turn this into plain text. So the way I would do that is I would copy this, and now I would go up to the paste button and I would paste this as plain text. So this is no longer a formula. If I look up at the formula bar now, it just appears as text instead. So now I'm going to place a new column here, insert, and now I have another space where I can separate the values in column E into column E and column F. So what I'll do is I will go up to the, I believe it's the data tab at the top, and click on text to columns. And now it's going to ask me if I want it to be delimited or fixed width. So I'll select delimited and go to next. It's separated by a comma, which is what I checked, and you can see a little preview below letting me how it will look. I can press next. And now if I wanted this to appear in a different format, such as text or date, I can select the format I'm interested in, but for now I'll keep it as general and press finish. Now as you can see, what was once Amy, comma A has now been separated into two separate cells. And I could, if I want to, drag this down and it would apply to the rest of the cells in the column. Another thing that I'd like to show you is how you could capitalize values that are lowercase in Excel. So in the case of these students here, their last initials are lowercase. What I can do instead is select these cells, and actually I'll give it a new column so it has somewhere to go. I need to remember to do that. And now what I can do is use the proper formula. So I'll put my equal sign, type in the word proper, and now I'm going to specify that I would like it to make the value in C2 into a proper or uppercase value. When I press enter, it now has made an uppercase letter, and I can apply this formula to the rest of the column. So these were a few tips and tricks that you can use when adding formulas in Excel.